Racism is a mental health issue. The nonprofit Mental Health America says trauma is the common link. Racism causes trauma, and that connects directly to mental health. And as Alexa Liacco learned, some of the most subtle forms of racism can hurt the most.
The moment Ryan Houston Dial stepped on this college campus, he felt at home.
This is where I want to be.
The University of Texas at San Antonio offered everything he wanted, but somehow the psychology major was left feeling empty.
I'm not feeling really well right now. I don't know what it is. I think it's more than something of just being sad.
His classes were the first place he noticed he felt alone.
Typically, I was the only African American male, so sometimes I feared tokenism, that I would have to be the speaker for a certain demographic.
The feelings of worry and stress only grew with the racial unrest this year and the pandemic.
My mental health was pretty low. When you have to be able to try to process a lot of these things that are going on in America and still have to go to work or go to school and act like that did not happen, I feel like you lose a part of yourself.
But Ryan couldn't accept that loss. He reached out to the Steve Fund, a nonprofit providing mental health resources specifically for students of color. Psychologists there helped him understand the emotional weight he was carrying.
Racial trauma is inherited from our ancestors who had to endure very traumatic events. And so we carry that with us.
Ryan realized he'd been living with that trauma for years.
I believe around 12 or 13 years old, it started with the Trayvon Martin case. And I remember sitting in my living room and I just started crying. And it hit a certain point to where I almost didn't even know why I was crying. And as I become older, I began to more realize I was crying because when I saw Trayvon Martin, I saw a reflection of myself that being an innocent black boy, very well in his neighborhood, minding his own business, could very well lose his life.
This pain can be healed with time and support, but without that, racial trauma can have real consequences on a person's health.
And that when they go unchecked, and they can create anxiety, they can create the depression symptoms such as sadness, such as fatigue.
These microaggressions can take many forms. Experts say it can be a subtle racist comment or a derogatory look. All are damaging. That's why researchers say it's more important than ever to get young people mental health resources, because 50% of lifelong mental illness starts showing up by the time a person turns 14, and 75% of chronic mental illness will likely emerge by age 24.
The more that we can equip the young person in terms of helping them to understand the various dynamics that they're going to endure or likely to endure in their life, such as microaggressions, such as racial trauma, the better off this young person is going to be in the end.
Psychologists say improving this situation will not only start on the individual level by giving young people better tools and resources to improve their mental health, but it will also start with conversations about dismantling the institutional racism that exists all around us, including here on college campuses.
The impact of institutionalized racism is pretty deep. Their systems, their procedures, their structures are still those old structures that were created for a very, very few at the expense of many.
But this system can be rebuilt.
It's empathy.
And deep conversations about how our nation's past is impacting the reality we live in.
It's going to take those who are unaffected to be just as enraged as those who are affected on a daily basis. And from there, we can start to have more honest conversations about what race is.
With those conversations, Ryan hopes stigmas will be broken and real change will follow.
I have a voice as an African-American male in a society that very well may try to oppress me and put me down, but I can still be the icon or stablemate and or symbol to another African-American male saying, hey, it is okay to want to cry. It is okay to want to talk about certain things that are bothering you, and that we can do this together.
Because together, the plea for a better tomorrow cannot be ignored.
That we just want to be seen as your equal. That's all we want.
For The Race, I'm Alexa Liacco.
Thank you for joining us this week for our conversation about mental health. Join us next week as we take a look at how the pandemic could impact the winter ahead. Until then, from Denver, Colorado, I'm Chris Stewart, and this is The Race.